The glass shattered before the auctioneer's hammer could fall. Hwan's hand punched through the display case and closed around the yellowed envelope inside. Broken glass cut his knuckles. Blood ran over his fingers and stained the old paper. Chairs scraped back. No one reached for him. The auctioneer, Mr. Hwan. Hwan opened the envelope before anyone dared stop him. At the top of the letter, in fading black ink, were 4 words. For my son. His father had been dead 20 years. No one had told him this letter existed. He unfolded the paper. The first line hit harder than the glass. If my son finds Loretta Vale, tell him he has no right to touch what I failed to protect. Hwan read the name twice. Loretta Vale. He did not know her, but his father had written about her like a warning, like a sin he never confessed. Then a woman, softly. Hwan turned. At the far end of the auction room stood a woman in a long black leather coat, silver hair, red lipstick, one gloved hand resting on a motorcycle helmet. His father's helmet, the one his mother said had burned in the crash. Loretta Vale was 72. She did not hide it. She carried her age like a blade. Hwan folded the letter, blood marking the crease. Loretta Vale. She looked at the broken glass, then at his hand. Your father said you would break something before you learned how to ask. A few men shifted in their seats. Hwan stepped toward her. His guards moved with him. Loretta lifted one gloved hand. Not them. The command was quiet. That made it worse. A 72-year-old woman had just given an order to the most feared man in Seoul. Everyone watched to see if he would obey. One of his men looked away first. Hwan raised 2 fingers. His guards stopped. Loretta's mouth curved. So he did leave you some manners. His jaw hardened. What were you to my father? The part of his life your mother buried. The words cut through the room. Hwan looked at the helmet. That belongs to my family. No, Loretta said. Your family kept what belonged to me. She lifted the helmet and turned toward the service exit. Hwan reached for her. It was instinct. Control before thought. Possession before permission. Loretta caught his wrist before his fingers touched her sleeve. His blood marked her glove. The room froze again. Her eyes did not soften. You read the first line, she said. Did you understand it? Hwan said nothing. Loretta released him. You have no right to touch me. The sentence landed louder than the breaking glass. He was close enough to reach her, old enough to know better, young enough to want anyway. He hated that he wanted to step closer. Loretta adjusted the helmet against her side. Her coat shifted near her collarbone. For 1 second, he saw ink. 3 words beneath her skin. The same slant, the same pressure, the same handwriting as the letter. His father's handwriting. Hwan's voice dropped. What is written on you? Loretta's face changed. Not fear, warning. Do not look at me like I am evidence. He looked at the letter in his hand, then at her throat. Is the rest of it on your body? She stepped closer, close enough for his men to misunderstand, close enough for the whole room to feel the scandal, still far enough that he could not touch her. The part your father was too ashamed to put on paper, she said. Then she walked toward the service exit. No explanation, no apology, no fear. At the service exit, She stopped without turning around. If you want the rest of the letter, follow without your guards. Then Loretta Vale disappeared with his father's helmet. Hwan stood bleeding in the broken glass. For the first time in his life, the truth was not in his hand. It was on her skin. The service exit slammed open, and Loretta Vale walked out with his father's helmet. Hwan followed before the door could swing shut. "Loretta!" She did not stop. At the bottom of the concrete ramp, a black motorcycle waited beneath the garage lights. Old steel, polished chrome, built to survive impact. Loretta walked straight to it. Hwan's voice hardened. "I asked you a question." "No," she said. "You demanded an answer." His guards spilled into the garage behind him. Black cars waited with engines running. Men in dark suits moved toward the exits. One command from him, and every door would close. Loretta looked at the cars, then at him. "Still traveling with witnesses?" Hwan tightened his grip on the letter. "You have my father's helmet." "And you have his first honest sentence." He stepped closer. Not enough to touch, enough to make every guard watch. "What did he do to you?" Loretta's eyes dropped to the blood drying on his hand. "Wrong question." She placed the helmet on the motorcycle seat and looked up at the security camera above them. "Tell your men to stand down." Hwan stared at her. "Why would I do that?" "Because if one of them touches my bike, I burn the second line before sunrise." His guards stopped moving. Loretta lifted the helmet slowly. Then she put it on. The sight hit him harder than it should have. His father's helmet, on her head, like the past had chosen her over him. He remembered the ink beneath her collarbone and hated that the helmet was not the only thing she carried from his father. One of his guards glanced away. Hwan saw it. So did Loretta. At 72, she still made the garage wait on her. "There it is," she said through the visor. "The shame. Not because I'm dangerous, because I'm old." His jaw locked. "No one here is laughing." "Not out loud." She swung one leg over the motorcycle. Hwan moved before thinking. Loretta raised one gloved hand. He stopped, a full step away. His men watched their boss wait for permission from a woman they had been ready to stop. "You learn quickly when men are watching," she said. "I don't need witnesses to stop you." "No, you need witnesses to pretend you still can." The words cut deep enough to silence the garage. Hwan lowered his voice. "You don't leave with my father's helmet." Loretta leaned over the handlebars. "Then take it." The challenge hung between them. Helmet, letter, skin, truth. He could order his men forward. He could drag her off the bike. He could take the helmet, the answers, the proof, and lose whatever was written on her body forever. Loretta waited. She was not daring him to be violent. She was daring him not to be. Hwan raised one hand. His guards stopped moving. Loretta tilted her helmeted head. "Better." The garage gate began to lower. She started the motorcycle. The headlights slammed white across the gate. Hwan turned to his men. "Stop the gate!" They ran. Too late. Loretta shot forward. The motorcycle slipped under the closing gate with inches to spare, her leather coat snapping behind her, his father's helmet disappearing into the Seoul night. Hwan stood still for half a second, not like a boss, like a man who had just watched a 72-year-old woman ride away with his bloodline in her hands. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. If you bring guards, you lose the second line. Hwan looked toward the street. Loretta's taillight cut between buses, taxis, and rain-slicked lanes. She was not running like prey. She was leading him. His driver opened the car door. "Sir?" Hwan looked at the black sedan, then at the motorcycle parked beside the wall. Again, his men watched him obey her. He took the motorcycle keys. The letter burned in his pocket. Loretta was ahead of him, wearing both the helmet and the truth. He started the bike and tore into the street. Ahead, her taillight cut hard toward the wet bridge curve. She did not slow down.
Loretta did not slow down. Her taillight cut hard toward the wet bridge curve, red against black rain, and Hwan leaned lower over his motorcycle. "Loretta!" The wind tore her name away. Her back tire slipped. Then the bike went sideways. Metal screamed against pavement. Sparks tore across the bridge. Loretta hit the road hard and rolled once toward the concrete barrier, his father's helmet striking the asphalt before stopping under a streetlight. Hwan braked too hard. His motorcycle skidded. He threw it down and ran. "Loretta!" She was on her side, one gloved hand pressed to the pavement, breathing through pain she refused to give a sound. Rain slid over her leather coat. The shoulder seam had split open. Headlights slowed behind them. Someone shouted from a taxi. Hwan dropped beside her. He saw blood. Not much. Enough to make him forget every rule. He reached for her shoulder to lift her. Loretta's hand snapped up and caught his wrist. Hard. Her grip hurt. He hated that he noticed how steady it was. "You start with your hands," she said, voice low from the fall. "You lose the truth." Hwan froze. Rain ran down his face. "I was trying to help you." "No," she said. "You were trying to take control because fear gave you permission." The words cut sharper than the crash. He looked at his hand in her grip, his bloody knuckles from the auction, her rain-dark glove around his wrist, his father's letter between them like a wound neither of them could close. Slowly, he pulled his hand back, not because he wanted to, because she told him to. Loretta watched the choice happen. Her breathing was uneven, but her eyes stayed clear. "Stand up," she said. "You're hurt." "I know what I am." "Your shoulder." "Stand up, Hwan." His name in her mouth stopped him more completely than the crash. He stood. Everything in him wanted to lift her anyway, but he did not. Loretta pushed herself up on one elbow. Pain flashed across her face and vanished almost as quickly. The torn leather shifted again. Hwan saw skin. Only a narrow place near her shoulder, exposed where the coat had split. And there, beneath rain and blood, were 3 tattooed words. Not decorative, not random, written in the same pressure, the same slant, the same old hand as the letter in his coat, his father's handwriting. "I failed her." Hwan forgot the rain. The 3 words opened something in him he had spent 20 years keeping locked. Loretta saw him read it. Her face hardened. "Look away." He did not. Not fast enough. "Hwan." That time her voice carried warning. He forced his eyes back to hers. But it was too late. The paper in his coat was only the beginning. His father had not only written to him, he had written on her. Hwan swallowed. The letter continues on your body. Loretta rose slowly, refusing the hand he did not offer this time. Rain slid down her face like tears, though he knew better. "No," she said. She picked up his father's helmet from the road. "The letter survived on my body." A siren wailed somewhere below the bridge. His guards would come soon. His world would come soon. Orders, cars, weapons, control. Loretta looked toward the far end of the bridge. "You get one question before they arrive." Hwan's voice was barely controlled. "Why did he write that?" Loretta put the helmet under her arm. Wrong question again. She stepped past him, limping but still first. Behind her, the wrecked motorcycle bled oil into the rain. Hwan followed without touching her. For the first time that night, it felt harder than violence. Loretta stopped beside the twisted bike and looked back. "If the truth is on a woman's body," she said, "what kind of man thinks pain gives him the right to read it?" Hwan had no answer. She turned toward the shadows beneath the bridge. "Next time, you read from a mirror." Then she walked into the rain, carrying his father's helmet, his father's shame, and the part of the truth he had no right to touch. "Stand close," she said without looking back. "Don't reach, or lose me." The garage door shut behind them like a verdict. "Hands behind your back," Loretta said. Hwan turned. She stood beside a workbench with his father's helmet under one arm, rain on her silver hair, torn leather clinging to one shoulder. He looked at the room only after he heard the lock slide into place. Mirrors lined the concrete walls. A yellow line cut across the floor. A black leather belt rested on the workbench. No witnesses, just Loretta, the helmet, the mirrors, and the part of his father's letter he had no right to read directly. Hwan's voice was low. "You brought me here for rules." "No," she said. "I brought you here because you keep failing them." She pointed to the yellow line. "Stand there." He looked down at it, then at her. "The line, Hwan." He stepped onto it. Loretta placed the helmet on the workbench, beside the belt. His eyes dropped to the leather. She saw the reaction. "Not for pain," she said. "For memory." Then she turned slightly, letting the mirror catch the side of her face and the torn shoulder of her coat. "First rule, hands behind your back." His jaw hardened. She waited until the silence made him choose. Somewhere outside, a siren faded into the distance. Water dripped from his coat onto the concrete. His bloody knuckles pulsed from the auction glass. Slowly, Hwan put his hands behind his back. His fingers curled until the cuts opened again. Loretta watched the blood return. "Second rule," she said. "You look only through the mirror." His eyes lifted. "Not directly at you? Not directly at what you have not earned." The words hit low. He looked into the mirror. There she was, 72, rain-soaked, hurt, still more untouchable than any woman he had ever wanted. The mirror made it worse. It gave him her shape without giving him permission. Loretta's hand rested beside the belt. Third rule, you do not move when I move. He said nothing. Fourth, you get 2 questions, not 3. Why? That is 1. His eyes snapped to hers in the reflection. Loretta did not smile. Careful? He hated how fast she made his power useless. He hated more that part of him wanted to stay inside her rules long enough to learn the truth.
She reached for the torn edge of her coat. Hwan's breath changed. Loretta stopped. "Say it." His voice came out rough. "I do not touch." "Again, I do not touch. And if you forget, I lose the truth." Only then did she lower the torn leather from her shoulder. Not far, not enough for ownership, enough for the mirror. The ink appeared in the reflection like a second voice, a narrow line along her upper back, written in the same pressure, the same slant, the same old hand as the letter in his coat. Hwan forced himself to read only through the glass. A date, October 3rd. His body went cold. The report said his father died on October 4th. Her skin said October 3rd. Hwan stepped forward before he knew he had moved. Loretta's hand landed on the belt, not grabbing it, only touching it. He stopped 1 inch before the yellow line. She looked at him through the mirror. "That was almost your last mistake." His breath thinned. "That date is wrong." "No," she said. "The report was. October 3rd, the night before the crash, the night before his mother wore black, the night before his father became a portrait." "What happened that night?" Loretta's eyes held his in the mirror. "That is your second question." He froze. She let him feel the cost of wasting a question. Then she said, "And you are not ready for the answer." A sound came from behind the garage door, a footstep, then another. Hwan turned his head. Loretta did not. On the security monitor, one of his guards stood outside the locked door, speaking into a phone. Another appeared beside him, then a third. The camera saw Hwan before they did. Seoul's most feared man, standing on a painted line with his hands behind his back, waiting for a 72-year-old woman to let him look. The guards saw through the narrow window. One guard raised his phone, then thought better of it. Hwan's face hardened. Loretta watched him in the mirror. "There it is again," she said. "The part you fear more than truth." "What?" "Being seen wanting a woman the world says should no longer be wanted." The words hit harder because the guards were still outside, because she was right, because he did not know whether he hated the shame or the fact that he wanted her anyway. Loretta pulled the torn leather back over her shoulder. Access ended. The mirror held only her face now. "You saw the date," she said. "That is all the access you earned tonight." Hwan looked at the locked door,
then at the guards outside, then back at her reflection.
"Tell them to leave."
"No," Loretta said. "You tell them." He understood the test too late. Not power, humiliation. Not secrecy, choice. Hwan walked to the garage door, hands still behind his back. His guards stared through the glass. He did not explain. He did not threaten. He only said, "Leave." They hesitated. Loretta watched from the mirror. Hwan's voice dropped colder. "Now." The guards disappeared. When he turned back, Loretta was already holding his father's helmet. "You protected the room," she said. "Not me." He stood still. That small difference felt like a wound. Loretta walked toward the rear exit. "Next time, you return what your family kept. In public." "The helmet?" She looked back. "The helmet is only the object." He said nothing. "No," Loretta said. "The shame." She opened the rear door. "And you will do it where your men can watch."
Then she disappeared, leaving him on the yellow line, hands behind his back, staring at a mirror that no longer gave him access.
The helmet sat in the center of Hwan's club, like a challenge no man wanted to name. His father's helmet, Loretta's proof. Around it, Hwan's men stood in a silent half-circle, pretending they were not waiting to see if their boss would obey a 72-year-old woman again. Hwan stood at the head of the room in a black suit, the yellowed letter folded inside his breast pocket. His knuckles were bandaged. The cuts still ached when he flexed his hand. One of his men, "Boss, we can send it to her." Hwan looked at him. The man went silent. Another tried. "Or say it was recovered. No need for all this." The elevator opened before Hwan could answer. Loretta Vale stepped out before the doors had finished parting. Black leather coat, silver hair, red lipstick. One shoulder still stiff from the crash. She walked like Payne had asked permission and been denied. Every man in the room turned. Some looked at her age. The smarter ones looked away. "She's old enough to be his mother," one of the younger men muttered. Loretta stopped. Hwan's eyes cut toward the man, but Loretta answered first. "And still too much woman for him to handle." Silence hit the club like a slap. Loretta walked to the center table and looked down at the helmet. "You brought witnesses," she said. Hwan's voice stayed controlled. "You asked for them." "I asked for witnesses, not cowards hiding behind whispers." The young man lowered his eyes. Loretta looked back at Hwan. "Return it like property, and you leave with nothing. Return it like shame, and I give you the next line." The room tightened. Now every man understood the price. Hwan wanted the next piece of the letter. He wanted the truth about his father. He wanted the answer hidden under Loretta's skin. But first he had to admit that the helmet was never his. He picked it up. Every man watched him choose between family pride and her truth. He stepped toward her. Loretta did not reach. She made him cross the distance. That was the cruelty. He held the helmet out. His voice carried across the club. "This is a transaction." Loretta looked at the helmet, then at his bandaged hand, then at the men behind him. "No," she said. "That is the word men use when obedience embarrasses them." A few men dropped their eyes. Loretta took one step closer, not enough to touch him, enough to make the room feel the scandal again. "A deal," she said, "is what men call obedience when a woman gives the order." Hwan's hand stayed extended. Loretta still did not take the helmet. "Ask," she said. His eyes sharpened. The room shifted. Someone near the bar, too loudly. "You want me to ask for permission to give you what is yours?" "No, I want you to admit it was never yours." Hwan's hand tightened around the helmet. At the family. At the mother whose version of the crash was starting to rot. At the father who wrote on her skin. At the son who still thought objects proved ownership. Hwan looked at the helmet again. He did not only want the next line, he wanted her approval. And that was worse. Slowly, he lowered his head. Not far, not deeply. Enough for the room to see the line break. "This belonged to you," he said. Loretta's eyes stayed on him. "Louder."
A muscle moved in his jaw. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to remind every man in the room that one word from him could end their breathing. Instead, he looked at his men. This belonged to her. No one moved. Loretta finally took the helmet, but she did not give him relief. She turned it in her hands, tracing one old scratch near the visor. Your father made that mark the night he came to me bleeding. Hwan went still. What night? Loretta lifted her eyes. You already used your questions. His mouth tightened. You said if I returned it, I would get the next piece. And you did. She reached into the inside pocket of her coat and removed a small folded strip of paper. Not old, new, written in black ink. Hwan took it. The words were short. Your mother knew where he went before the crash. The word mother turned the room colder. Loretta put the helmet under her arm. There's your next piece. That is not enough. It never is for men who confuse access with ownership. His hand lifted half an inch before he remembered the bridge, before he remembered the mirror, before he remembered what touching cost. He stopped. The entire room saw it. That was worse than shouting. Loretta, good, she said. You remembered. One of his younger men looked away, ashamed for him. Another, something under his breath. Loretta turned toward the room.
You think I'm too old to make him weak. No one answered. She lifted the helmet slightly. You should be more worried that I'm old enough to know where every weakness came from. Then she walked toward the elevator. Hwan followed with his eyes, not his hands. At the doors, Loretta stopped. You want the next mark? He said nothing. The next mark is not on paper, Loretta said, and I am not the only one who knows where to find it. Hwan's eyes narrowed. Who? At the elevator, she looked back. Ask Victor Kane. The doors began to close. And bring no men who think shame is louder than truth. The doors sealed. Hwan stood before his people with the new line of the letter in his hand, his father's helmet gone, and a name he had never heard spoken with that kind of power. Victor Kane. For the first time, his men did not fear what he might do. They watched to see whether Hwan would chase the woman, or the old man who knew her name first. Victor Kane did not hide. His name was scratched into the steel door like a dare. Hwan found him exactly where Loretta's last words led him, beneath an old motorcycle bar near the river, in a private repair room behind a locked stairwell. No guards this time, just the note burning in his pocket. Your mother knew where he went before the crash. The words had not cooled since Loretta handed them to him. Hwan knocked once. Before Victor answered, Loretta's voice came from inside. Let him in, Vic! Hwan went still. Vic. The door opened. Victor Kane stood there with white hair, a gray beard, oil on his fingers, and one hand resting near a wrench instead of a gun. A gun would have been easier to respect. He looked Hwan up and down, then smiled. You're late. Hwan's eyes narrowed. You were expecting me? No, Victor said. I was expecting pride. You came instead. He stepped aside. Hwan entered. Loretta sat on a workbench near the back wall, one boot braced on a lower shelf, his father's helmet beside her. Her coat was open at the throat, but not enough to offer him anything. Her shoulder was bandaged under black fabric. Victor had done that. Hwan saw the clean wrap, saw the care in it, saw that she had allowed another man's hands where his had been forbidden. His jaw tightened. Loretta noticed. Of course she did. "There it is," she said. "The look men call concern when they mean ownership." Victor wiped his hands on a cloth. "Careful, Lori. He's young enough to think jealousy is proof." Lori sounded like a door Hwan had not been allowed near. He looked at Victor. "Do not call her that." Victor laughed once. Not mocking. Worse. Familiar. "I called her that before you were born." The room sharpened. Hwan stepped closer. Loretta lifted one finger. He stopped. Victor saw it. His smile faded into something more serious. "Well," he said, "she trained you faster than your father." Hwan turned on him. "You knew my father?" "I drank with him, rode with him, bled with him once." Loretta looked away. Not from fear, from memory. Hwan caught it. Victor did too. "And he trusted her," Victor said, "more than he trusted your mother. And your mother knew it." The words landed like a blade on the table. Hwan's hand moved toward Victor's collar. Loretta's voice stopped him. "Touch him, and you lose me." "Not the truth. Me." Hwan froze. That was worse. Because for 1 second, she had named the thing he kept pretending not to want. Victor looked between them and shook his head. "Your father made that mistake too." Hwan's eyes cut back to him. "Wanting her?" "No," Victor said. "Thinking wanting gave him rights." Silence pressed into the room. Loretta stood from the workbench. Victor moved first, offering his hand. She took it, not because she needed help, because she chose to. Hwan felt the choice like a public wound. Victor helped her down, then released her immediately. That made it worse. He knew how to touch without taking. Hwan did not. Loretta walked to a metal cabinet and opened the top drawer. Inside lay an old photograph in a clear sleeve. 3 people stood beside a motorcycle. Victor, younger. Hwan's father, bleeding through a white shirt. And Loretta, younger too, already looking at the camera like she knew the world would lie later. The date stamped on the corner was October 3rd. Hwan stared at the photograph. His father's hand was on Loretta's shoulder. Not possessive. Desperate. On the back of the photo, in his father's handwriting, were 4 words. "Your mother knew before Seoul." Hwan did not breathe. Loretta's eyes held his. This was taken before the crash was reported. Before the mourning clothes. Victor stepped beside her. He came to her first. Not your mother. Not your family. Her. Hwan looked at the photo again. His jealousy split open. Part of it went to Victor, standing too close to her with a past Hwan could not enter. The deeper part went to his father. A dead man. A portrait. A ghost who had touched Loretta before him, trusted Loretta before him, failed Loretta before him, and somehow still stood between them. Loretta saw all of it. "If you are jealous of a past you have no right to own," she said. "Is that love, Hwan? Or just control arriving late?" He had no answer. Victor picked up Loretta's gloves from the bench. "Come on, Lori. Ride's waiting." Hwan's voice went cold. "She is not leaving with you." Loretta turned. "She is standing right here." The correction cut him in front of Victor. Not she. I. Victor held out her riding gloves. Loretta took them. Hwan stepped forward once. Only once. Then stopped. He remembered the bridge, the mirror, the club, every place his hand had almost cost him the truth. Loretta walked past him with Victor. At the door, she paused. "You wanted the next mark." He said nothing. She turned her shoulders slightly, just enough for him to see the edge of ink beneath the bandage. Not read it, only know it existed. "At the grave," she said, "you will see the mark your mother paid to hide." Victor opened the door for her. Outside, a motorcycle engine coughed awake. Hwan stood with the photograph in his hand. Loretta looked back one last time. "If you want to know what your mother buried, meet us where she will be buried." Then she left with Victor Kane. Hwan stood alone with the photo, the note, and a jealousy too old to punish. He had followed Loretta into jealousy. Now she was leading him to his mother's funeral. The first thing Hwan saw at his mother's funeral was not the coffin. It was Loretta Vale standing beside it. Black leather beneath a long, dark coat, silver hair pinned at her neck. Victor Kane waiting near the back. She had come without invitation, without apology, without fear. Before Hwan reached the aisle, Loretta opened her coat and removed half of an old paper letter, yellowed, folded, protected for years. Hwan recognized the ink before he recognized the shape, his father's handwriting. Loretta placed the half letter inside his mother's coffin, beside her folded hands. A phone clicked somewhere in the front row, then another. The room understood before anyone spoke. This was no longer grief. This was evidence. His mother's portrait smiled above the coffin with the grace Seoul had believed for 20 years, a grieving widow, a lie in pearls. Hwan's voice dropped. "Take that out." Loretta turned. "No." His men shifted behind him. His relatives stared. Victor did not step in. He let Loretta decide whether she needed him. Hwan stepped closer. "This is my mother's funeral." "No," Loretta said. "This is where her silence finally gets witnesses." The words cut through the chapel. One of the older uncles moved forward. Hwan lifted one hand. No one touched her. Loretta saw the order, saw the restraint, saw the war inside him. "Good," she said. "You remembered not to send hands before truth." A woman near the front whispered, "Is that her?" Another answered, "The American." A younger man muttered, "His father's woman." "At her age?" someone whispered. Loretta heard all of it. So did Hwan. Her eyes stayed on him. "Tell them," she said. His breath thinned. "Tell them what?" "That I am not your father's shame." The room tightened. He looked at the coffin, at his mother's portrait, at the letter lying beside her dead hands. He was losing control in front of everyone who mattered. Loretta reached for the collar of her dark coat. Hwan felt his body go still. "Don't," he said. She looked at him. "Afraid of what they will see?" "I am telling you not to expose yourself in this room." "No," Loretta said. "You are telling me to protect your mother's memory with my silence." His hand moved before he chose it. He caught her wrist. The chapel froze. Every eye dropped to his fingers around her skin. Victor took one step forward, then stopped, waiting. Loretta did not pull away. That was worse.
She looked at Hwan's hand, then at his face, and said clearly enough for the front rows to hear, "Your father touched me with shame. You will not repeat him." Hwan's grip loosened as if burned. But the damage was done. The entire Mafia family had seen it. The young boss who had returned a helmet under her command, the son who had chased her through Seoul, the man who had been told not to touch and still failed in front of his mother's coffin. Loretta lifted his hand off her wrist with 2 fingers. Then she released him. "You asked for truth," she said. "Now stand still while it costs you something." He did. Not because he wanted to, because Victor was watching, because the phones were recording, because his father's letter was lying inside his mother's coffin, because if he touched her again, she would disappear with the truth forever. Loretta opened her coat, not wide, not for scandal, for evidence she controlled. At her collarbone, beneath the edge of black fabric, a line of tattooed handwriting curved over her skin. The same old pressure, the same slant. His father's hand. Hwan read only what she allowed him to see. She ordered it. His stomach turned. His mother's portrait smiled above the coffin. His father's handwriting marked Loretta's skin below it. 2 dead people in the room. Only one still protected by lies. Hwan's voice came out low. "What did she order?" Loretta looked at the coffin, then at him. "You already know the shape of it." "No." "Yes," she said. "You do." Victor's voice came from the back. "Say it, Lori." Hwan's eyes cut to him. Loretta did not look away from Hwan. "Your mother ordered me erased before your father's death could become a question." A woman gasped. One of the uncles cursed. The priest lowered his eyes. Hwan stood between the coffin and Loretta, feeling the room split under his feet. His mother had not only lied. She had buried a woman while that woman was still breathing. He looked at the tattoo again, then at the half letter in the coffin. "Why didn't you come forward?" Loretta's face hardened. "Because your father made me a secret. Your mother made me a target. And you were still a boy." The answer silenced him.
Then the younger man who had whispered earlier said louder, "She waited 20 years to shame a dead woman." Loretta turned her head slowly.
"No," she said. "I waited 20 years for the son to become dangerous enough to hear the truth." Hwan almost spoke. Could not. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Then another phone in the room. Then another. The photo had already gone out. Hwan holding Loretta's wrist at his mother's coffin. Loretta with tattooed truth exposed beneath black fabric. His family's lie turning public before the flowers had begun to wilt. Loretta closed her coat. Access ended. She looked at Hwan. "You wanted the next mark at the grave." He said nothing. "You got it." Then she stepped back from the coffin. Victor came to her side. He did not touch her, not until she nodded. Hwan saw that, even here, even now. Victor waited for permission. Loretta took his arm. The shame hit Hwan harder than the accusation. At the chapel doors, she stopped. "You can bury your mother," she said, "or you can bury the lie with her." Hwan looked at the coffin, at the letter, at the portrait, at the woman leaving with the truth still written on her skin. For the first time, he did not know which grief belonged to him. By the time Loretta reached the chapel doors, Seoul had already seen his hand on her wrist. The caption came before he could stop it. Korean Mafia boss breaks at mother's funeral over father's 72-year-old secret. This time, the shame did not stay in the room.
By midnight, the photo had reached every phone in Seoul that mattered. Hwan saw it on 3 screens at once, his own, his captain's, the club monitor replaying it like a victory. His hand around Loretta Vale's wrist, his mother's coffin behind them. Loretta's collar open just enough for the tattooed truth to show beneath black fabric. The caption was worse than the image. Korean Mafia boss breaks at mother's funeral over father's 72-year-old secret. Then came the comments, not from strangers, from men with guns, money, family names, and enough fear to laugh from a distance. Old enough to be his mother, his father's woman. He lost Seoul over a 72-year-old woman. Hwan stood in the center of his club, while every screen turned his shame into entertainment. His captain stepped close. "Boss, we can contain this." Hwan did not look at him. "How?" "Bring her in. Put her somewhere secure." Secure. A cage with better lighting. Hwan looked at the screen again. Loretta's wrist in his hand, his fingers around her like proof of every accusation she had ever made against him. He heard her voice from the chapel. "Your father touched me with shame. You will not repeat him." His jaw hardened. "Find her." The captain nodded. "Alive?" Hwan turned. The room went still. The captain lowered his eyes. "I meant unharmed." "No," Hwan said. "You meant owned." No one answered. A shadow moved along the upper balcony. Hwan noticed too late. Then the loading entrance opened. A motorcycle engine rolled through the underground level like thunder under concrete. Every man turned. Loretta Vale rode into Hwan's club herself. No escort, no fear, no permission. Her black motorcycle stopped beneath the main chandelier, water dripping from the tires onto polished stone. She killed the engine and removed her helmet slowly. Silver hair, red lipstick, black coat. 72 years of not asking any man whether she was allowed to enter. Hwan's men reached for their weapons. Hwan raised one hand. They stopped. Loretta saw it. "Good," she said. "You remembered not to send hands first." He walked toward her. Not fast, not slow. Every screen in the room still showed the photo from the funeral. Every man in the room knew what his hand had done. Hwan stopped 3 steps away. "You should not have come here." Loretta swung one leg over the bike and stood. "I came because your men were about to call kidnapping protection." His eyes moved to his captain. The captain looked away. Loretta smiled without warmth. "They always look away when a woman names the cage." Hwan's voice dropped. "I can keep you alive." "No," she said. "You can keep me contained. That photo put a target on you. That photo showed your hand on me." His face tightened. She stepped closer. Not enough to touch, enough for the room to misunderstand. Again. "You want to protect my body because my body now threatens your name." "That is not true." "Then say what is true." He said nothing. Loretta looked at the screens, at the caption, at the men pretending not to read the words still scrolling under her face. She turned back to Hwan. "They are not laughing because I am old," she said. "They are laughing because you wanted me and still tried to handle me like evidence." A few men shifted. Hwan's eyes sharpened. Careful. Loretta lifted her chin. No, that is your word, not mine. The room stilled. She reached into her coat and removed a small black key on a silver chain. Hwan recognized the shape. Old archive key. Loretta held it at her throat, not offering it, making him look. This opens the first room your mother sealed. His breath changed. The archive. Part of it. What is inside?
The rest of what your family buried. He took one step forward. Loretta's hand closed around the key. The room remembered before he did. No touching, no taking, no proof without permission. Hwan stopped. Loretta watched him stop. Only then did she continue. You want the final line of your father's letter? Yes. You want the archive? Yes. You want to clean the shame before it stains your throne. His silence answered. Loretta stepped closer, the key still against her throat. Then here is the final deal. Not in private, she said. Hwan's jaw flexed. Loretta, no. You do not get my truth in a quiet room after your hand made me public. She pointed to the screens. You will stand before your men, your enemies, and every camera that has already used my body as a headline. His voice dropped. And say what? Loretta looked straight at him. That you tried to turn my body into evidence. Silence hit the club. She went on. That you grabbed me because the truth on my skin scared you more than the lie in your mother's coffin. One of his men cursed under his breath. Hwan did not look away. Loretta's voice lowered. And that if a woman carries the truth on her body, pain does not give a man the right to read it. No one laughed now. His captain stepped forward. Boss, don't do this in front of... Hwan lifted one hand. The captain stopped. Loretta watched. You choose now, she said. Protect my voice, or steal it again and call it protection. Hwan looked at the screens, at the photo, at his hand on her wrist, at the woman standing before him with the key to everything his mother had buried. He wanted to order the screens shut off. He wanted to send every man out. He wanted to take her somewhere no one could look at her. He wanted, still, to make control look like care. Instead, he asked, If I say it? Loretta's eyes did not soften. Then I let you read the final line. On paper? No. His breath caught. Loretta touched the edge of her collar. Through a mirror, with your hands where I can see them. The club went silent again. The mirror, the line, the rule, the body he wanted and had no right to claim. Victor Kane stepped into the balcony light. He had been there long enough to hear everything. Hwan saw him. Loretta saw Hwan see him. There it was again. Jealousy. Alive. Useless. Victor called down softly. Truth or access, Hwan? Choose. Hwan's hand closed into a fist. Loretta's gaze cut to it. He opened his fingers. Slowly. Publicly. The room saw that too. Loretta nodded once. Better. She walked past him toward the center of the club, not hiding, not waiting, not asking. She stepped beneath the largest screen, the leaked photo burning above her head. Cameras turned toward Hwan, one by one. He stepped into their frame. Loretta lifted the key at her throat. Last chance, Hwan. Her voice was calm, terrible. Do you want the truth badly enough to stop owning the woman who survived it? Hwan looked at the cameras and did not order them off. For once, the room waited for his confession, not his command.
Cameras faced Hwan. His men, his enemies, Victor Kane and Loretta Vale, waited to see whether he would confess or command. Above Loretta's head, the leaked photo still burned across the largest screen, his hand on her wrist, her tattoo exposed, his mother's coffin behind them. Loretta held the archive key at her throat. "Last chance," she said. Hwan looked at the key, then at her, then at the cameras. Every instinct in him wanted to take control back, shut the screens off, clear the room, erase the witnesses, turn confession into strategy. But Loretta had not come for strategy. She had come for the one thing he had never given her: truth without ownership. Hwan stepped fully into the camera frame. His captain whispered, "Boss." Hwan did not look at him. Loretta watched his hands. They were open, empty, visible. "Ask," she said. The word hit harder than an order. Hwan understood. Not demand, not bargain, not threaten. Ask. Slowly, in front of his men, his enemies, Victor Kane, and every camera waiting to turn him into blood sport, Hwan lowered himself to one knee. The room broke quietly. A few men inhaled. One cursed under his breath. Someone's phone lifted higher. A young Mafia boss on one knee before a 72-year-old woman. Not to worship her, to stop owning her. Hwan looked up at Loretta. "I am asking," he said. Her face did not soften. "For what?" "The truth." "And what are you not asking for?" His throat tightened. The answer cost more than the knee. "Your body." The club went still. Loretta's fingers closed around the key. "And what else?" He looked at the leaked photo above her. "My right to touch what I did not earn." Victor said nothing. That was somehow worse than approval. Loretta turned toward the mirror wall behind the bar. "Stand!" Hwan rose. "Hands behind your back." He obeyed. No hesitation this time. His men saw. His enemies recorded. Loretta saw the difference. Not surrender, restraint. She walked to the mirror and stood with her back angled toward the glass. "Allowed distance," she said. Hwan stopped 3 steps away, close enough to feel the heat of wanting, far enough to remember the rule. His body wanted to move closer. His hands wanted to come forward. His pride wanted to hate Victor for watching. But the rule was stronger than the desire. Loretta touched the edge of her collar. Victor's voice came from the balcony. "Lori," not warning, offering. "You can still leave." The room tightened. Hwan felt jealousy rise so fast it almost became movement. Victor offering her exit. Victor knowing when to stop. Victor knowing she might choose freedom before giving Hwan anything more. Hwan did not turn. He did not order Victor silent. He did not call guards. He did not reach for Loretta. He only said, "If she leaves, it will be because I earned it." Loretta looked at him in the mirror. For the first time that night, something in her expression changed. Not forgiveness, recognition. She lowered the fabric just enough for the mirror to catch the final line of ink near her collarbone. Hwan looked only at the reflection. The handwriting was his father's, old, uneven, permanent. The final line read, "She saved my son from the family that would have made him a king without a soul." Hwan stopped breathing. The cameras blurred. The mirror did not. His mother had chosen the throne. Loretta had paid for it. His father had hidden the truth on the only body his family could not fully bury, and Hwan had almost repeated them all. Loretta covered the tattoo. Access ended. Hwan looked at the cameras. Now he understood the choice. If he protected his mother's memory, Loretta became a scandal again. If he protected Loretta's voice, his mother became the lie. Everyone waited for him to choose family. Everyone waited for him to choose power. Everyone waited for him to bury the woman standing in front of him the way his family had buried her before. Hwan turned to the cameras. His voice was low, but it carried. I wanted the truth so badly, I forgot she was not evidence. No one moved. Her skin was never my family's document. Loretta held still. My family buried her once. Hwan looked at the leaked photo on the screen, at his own hand, at the proof of what he had almost become. I will not bury her again. The silence after that was not obedience. It was damage. His men understood first. He had chosen a 72-year-old woman's truth against his mother's name. His enemies understood next. The clip would travel before sunrise. The young boss on one knee, the public confession, the mother exposed, the woman he still could not touch. Victor looked at Loretta, waiting, maybe expecting her to leave with him now. Hwan did not look away from her. He wanted one thing, not the archive, not the cameras, not the room, her permission. Loretta removed the key from her neck. For one dangerous second, the key felt like permission. She placed it in his open palm. His fingers closed around it. Warm metal, cold mercy. You earned the archive, Loretta said. His eyes lifted to hers. Not my skin. The words cut cleanly. No cruelty, no softness, just the boundary. Hwan swallowed. For the first time, he asked without command in his voice, May I touch the last line? Loretta's hand moved before he finished. She covered the tattoo with her palm. No. The answer landed harder because it was quiet. His men saw it. Victor saw it. The cameras saw it. Hwan had confessed. He had chosen her truth. He had destroyed part of his own power. And still, he did not receive her body as reward. Loretta stepped closer, close enough for him to feel the refusal. Not as a reward, she said. Not as proof. Not as goodbye. Hwan did not move. The first man who read me made me a secret, she said. I won't let his son make me a confession. His hand tightened around the key. He did not argue. That was the final proof she had wanted. Not love, not suffering. Restraint. Loretta turned away. Victor stepped down from the balcony. He offered his hand. Loretta looked at it, then passed it. No, Vic. Victor lowered his hand. No wound, no claim. He knew how to let a woman leave without making her explain freedom. Loretta walked toward the loading entrance, alone. Her motorcycle waited under the concrete lights. Hwan followed only to the doorway. Not closer. Not this time. She put on her helmet. The engine started. He wanted to say her name. He did not. Loretta looked back once. Not enough to forgive. Enough to make sure he understood. Then she rode out into the Seoul night alone. Hwan remained at the club entrance with the archive key in his hand, the letter in his pocket, and the public truth burning through every screen behind him. The archive gave him names, dates, payments, signatures. Everything except Loretta. Inside a black metal box beneath his father's old office, he found the second letter. No blood, no tattoo, no mirror. Only paper. His father's final handwriting. Hwan unfolded it with hands that had finally learned not to reach. The last line read, If you love her because she survived us, do not ask her to survive you too.
He stood there until the words stopped being a sentence and became a verdict. Outside, Seoul still had the video. His enemies still had the confession. His family still had the wound. And Loretta Vale had the one thing no man in his bloodline had managed to keep from her forever: herself. Hwan looked toward the road where her motorcycle had disappeared. For the first time, he understood. Love had not given him access. It had given him a boundary. And the boundary had left before he learned how to call it mercy. Comment question: if a man finally tells the truth, but only after he has already turned a woman into evidence, does he deserve another chance? Or did he only learn the boundary after he lost access?